whatever you're thinking and feeling are real, valid, and deserving of a voice. Me simply sharing the truth liberated and created space for other people to share these truths that they likely wouldn't have shared if it wasn't for me going first. I felt fucking electricity, like aliveness. And I was like, wait, if that's what telling the truth feels like, I never feel this way. Authenticity and telling the truth in a way that is truly constructive is the experience that we're all after. How do we connect with the truth of who we are, what we want? How do we find like the frameworks and tools that allow us to share that in a way that liberates other people's truths, that creates more connection? And so for me, that is the foundation of good communication.
Why don't you start with what was bad communication in your life? How did you learn the hard way?
To me, I think that...
Hello and welcome. Today, we are going to talk with Andrew Horn. He is one of my dearest friends. He also happens to be an entrepreneur, an executive coach, a speaker on many famous stages, and Forbes called him the Dale Carnegie of the digital age, which I honestly don't know what that means, but we'll... Hopefully he'll tell us. Hopefully we'll find out. He's done lots of really impressive things. He created a company called Tribute, which you might have used, which is all about making gratitude and appreciation videos and all kinds of tribute videos to the people that you most love who are special in your life. And it was all about sharing our deepest experiences of love and gratitude and appreciation for those that we care most about. He's touched me in our friendship by being a man of deep integrity, of mastering communication skills, and always inviting me to be the most honest, real, authentic version of myself. So in this conversation, we're going to take you through different ways that you can learn to communicate better, more effectively, different frameworks you can use, different shifts that we've both had that shifted us out of talking in a way that created defensiveness or aggression in other people into being able to speak our truth with an open heart and with a level and manner of delivery that other people could truly hear. We're also going to talk about his journey with men. So he works with men and has a whole program called Junto. And in that, he really works with men on developing integrity, connection to self, communication skills. So we're also going to talk about the specific journey for men of developing more integrity inside of their lives. And for you listening, this will hopefully be a podcast that inspires you to be the realest, most authentic, most true version of yourself, and how to be able to communicate that to the world in a very effective way that touches people's hearts. Welcome, Andrew Horn.
Oh, we're recording right now?
We're recording. We're joking because I asked Andrew to come on this podcast at pretty much the exact same time that he agreed to take my extraordinarily heavy, as big as it gets suitcase into Burning Man for me, which, as we all know, is one of the great gifts of the playa.
That's a major schlep.
Yeah.
For those of you who have aspirations of being on this tantric life, there's a very direct pathway that I've uncovered. So,
have you ever looked at my career and thought, that's kind of amazing? I'd love to do the same thing. Well, you absolutely can. You can make good money doing inspirational, heart-centric work. You can work from anywhere in the world and know that you are an inspiration to people about what is possible sexually, relationally, and spiritually, and where you get to be creatively expressed in the work that you do. The VITA Coaching Certification is my 1-year training that shows you how to do exactly that. It's a professional certification that allows you to upgrade your healing skills so that you can be the teacher, coach, and guide that you were born to be. It trains you to coach at a mastery level. Shows you how to be a groundbreaking leader in the field of sex, love, and relationships, walks you step by step through how to launch your business and how to create a content platform like your own podcast or social media channel, and finally teaches you how to enroll your dream clients into your retreats and your coaching and your different classes in a way that is heart and soul centric and also incredibly effective. If you want to learn more about this program, find the link down below or go to laylamartin.com patreon.com/VITA. That's VITA. It'll put you on the mailing list to learn more about the program. And I'm also going to send you my coaching checklist, which will give you all the different things to be aware of to be successful in this career. So he was just expressing to me the depth of his love for me, and I was expressing back the depth of my love for him. And then I said, "You're not just on the podcast because you took my suitcase into the burn."
Were we recording when I told you how much I love you?
We were. I mean, we can include that.
For sure. Yeah, include it. It's true. It's real. It's like the realest thing. I love the shit out of you.
I love the shit out of you too.
All right, let's chat.
I also loved, real quick, our story because we were just like, when did we first meet? Yeah. And you were married to Mickey Agarwal. Yeah. And so I met you together as a couple. And Wadhira was very small. Very, very small. And Andrew Simpson had just done his first MEMA ceremony, and Andrew's very open about his life and his experiences. And our first conversation was, I was like, yeah, he was so high last night. And he was literally, he like looked at me and he was like, I think I need to pee on all the furniture. And I like looked at him and I was like, babe, you do whatever you need to do to get free.
That's not what I remembered, though. I remember him as Earthfucker.
Right. Because so after that, so I was just basically like, yes, babe, pee all over the furniture.
Whatever
like,
you want.
I wanted Andrew Simpson's liberation. So I was like, you got to piss on the furniture. We'll deal with it tomorrow. That is a tomorrow problem. Tonight is about freedom. And he actually didn't pee on the furniture. He peed all over the bathroom, which is his expression of liberation. And then we went out into the yard because we had this cool, well-lit, vibey yard, actually with similar lights to what's behind me right now. And he starts fucking the earth. And he was like, I'm the only person on the planet fucking the earth right now. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. And he's like, I'm the first person in Venice to fuck the earth. And I was like, I don't even know if that's true. And he was like, I'm the only person fucking the earth in Venice Beach right now. And I was like, that might be true.
Might be true.
I can't 100% say that that's true, but it might be.
I had questions, which were, are we talking flat land here? Are we talking, did you dig a hole or an orifice to copulate with? Like, what were we talking about? I think he was a flat land fucker.
Yeah, he just laid flat down.
Just as it is.
And fucked the earth.
There you go.
As you do.
Perfect.
So that was our inception story. And I have known you. You're a leader of men's work. And one of the great things that I've seen you do is embody both integrity and master communication skills. And you really work with men on this. And you are someone who not only teaches this, but I've really noticed how much you've grown personally in all the years that I've known you. So I really wanted to come on, have you tell us, how can we talk to each other in better, kinder ways? Why don't you start with what was bad communication in your life? How did you learn the hard way?
Yeah. So what was bad communication? To me, I think that bad communication typically takes the form of hyperbolic criticism. It's like fundamentally, anytime I find myself, or I work with a lot of different people in conflict, it's because some fundamental need is being unmet. And we're conditioned to criticize the other hyperbolically. We're never together anymore. You're never present. We never go on dates anymore. Because we're trying to get that need met. But that type of hyperbolic judgment just engineers defensiveness. So trying to layer our subjective experience onto someone else's life immediately just begets them doing the exact same thing back to us. And so bad communication was just existing in places where myself and partners, whether personal or professional, are not getting our needs met. And we're just lost in the reactivity of criticism and complaint. And I think that one of the greatest gifts of my relationship with Mickey, which you held us through the most challenging aspects of that relationship. Like you've seen this and seen both of us in the depths, something I'm infinitely grateful for.
I have many claims to fame, but I definitely have the claim to fame of actually mediating your divorce process.
Yeah. She definitely, that's why.
For free, not...
Facilitated the divorce, mediated the divorce, for sure. But I think that in our relationship, like Mickey is this incredible genius and incredibly fiery. And I think that to coexist in this incredible relationship that we built, I needed to learn some skills to meet her fire, to meet a lot of the judgment and the criticism that was present there. And on my part as well, to create some semblance of harmony, to help the relationship to grow. And so I think I found so much of my salvation in nonviolent communication, of really just understanding the fundamental difference between subjectivity and objectivity, and how to take full ownership for the quality of my experience and my relationship, and noticing that anytime I'm in hyperbolic criticism or complaint, like I started to embrace this idea that I'm occupying the seat of the victim. I'm giving away my power to impact this situation, this relationship positively. And what are the tools that I could learn that allowed me to respond instead of react? And so, this was for my own salvation, but also it's just, I think, what I've nerded out on from a very young age, because I grew up in Hawaii. I experienced a lot of racial discrimination at a young age, like rare thing for a middle-class white dude, but that was my reality. And I so deeply wanted to belong. And when I moved away from Hawaii to high school when I was 14, I was so ready to do whatever it took to abandon myself in the pursuit of belonging. And so I developed all of these traits of codependency and validation seeking, and mastered so many of the tools of effective communication, of like, what are the best questions to ask, of like, how do I tell a story in a way that evokes emotion in other people? And even though I did that, and it created some relational success and with women and with friends, and created companies and raised capital at a really young age, but for me, like, so much of the dissonance that I carried, like in my body, the anxiety, the limiting beliefs that I carried, not just in like a boardroom, but with my friends, like clenching in my belly. And so for me, the moment where good communication like really came online was a singular experience where I had started to study a lot of these techniques and these tools. And a powerful one was nonviolent communication that we had just talked about. But I had this experience in a workshop when I was 27 years old. It's called Gestalt communication. And I met someone at the Conscious Capitalism Summit here in Austin. He saw how I was talking to some of the people at a cocktail table. At the time, I was running my company, Tribute. It's done millions of group video montages all over the world, really beautiful business. And he was like, hey, I see you talking to these people in a way that evokes like the principles of this modality called Gestalt. Do you know what that is? I was like, no, I've never heard of that. And he's like, well, I'm a benefactor of this modality. I think it can heal the world. Will you come and do a week-long training and I'll pay for it? And I was like, yeah, sure. Thank you, Corey, for that, by the way. And I get to this training, and the first thing the facilitator says to us is, okay, there are 3 pillars of awareness I'm going to encourage you or invite you to embrace while you're here. Authenticity. Whatever you're thinking and feeling are real, valid, and deserving of a voice. Curiosity. Whatever you want to know, ask the question that honors your deepest curiosity about yourself and the other. And presence. Come out of any prediction about what the future holds or stories about who you are from the past, and just be here in this moment. And if you do that, I promise that you will have a novel experience. And the first thing that they did is just a simple contact exercise. They're like, okay, stand up, walk around the room. And then whoever you're standing next to, when they say stop, go and look at that person, step to an uncomfortable distance and look them in the eyes. And so there's this man, he's probably 60, balding, glasses, and we're right here. And the facilitator says, I want you to say exactly what you're thinking right now. And the first thing that came to mind was, this feels homoerotic. And I feel like I don't allow this level of distance or closeness with my friends because I'll be perceived as gay. And they have this mechanism of pounding your chest. And that means like, I feel you. Like I know that. And the man across from me pounded his chest. And in my whole body, I feel it right now. I felt fucking electricity, like aliveness. And I was like, what is this feeling? And I sat down and I was like, wait, if that's what telling the truth feels like, I never feel this way. This electricity coursing through my body is a foreign concept. And the next moment was a break. And I had had this interaction with this woman who was there, who was a successful media mogul. She was the only other person in her 20s who was there. And I had been trying to make inroads with her from the beginning of the event. But everyone's had that experience of like wanting to talk to someone or asking them questions, and they're just like giving you one-word answers. They're looking around the room. They're not into it, is the story. And so I start getting in my head and withdrawing. And I'm like, oh, she doesn't think I'm successful enough. She doesn't think I'm interesting. And so now I'm pulling away. And during the break, I'm at this coffee machine and she starts walking up to me. And I'm like, oh, telling the truth. Like, that's the thing. So whatever you're thinking and feeling. So she walks over and I was like, hey, I just wanted to say something real quick. Do you have a moment? She's like, yeah. And I was like, I just want to start by saying I love what you've built. It's so cool. I'm so impressed. Like I read this magazine. And I also want to let you know that I've been trying to ask you questions and connect, and I haven't really felt you asking me any back, or like my stories that you're not really interested in connecting with me. And I just want to say that that's totally fine if that's the case. And if you do want to connect, like let me know, because I'm going to stop trying. And there was like a 3 count. And then what do you think the next thing she did was?
I don't know.
She just looks me in the eyes and she starts fucking bawling.
Oh.
She starts just weeping.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, this authenticity stuff is bullshit. This is like not the desired outcome. And then she opens up and she looks at me and she says, Andrew, this is the last place on the planet that I want to be right now. Mm. She's like, I'm getting sued by my co-founder. My partner and I are breaking up. I don't want to be here. Mm. And I had this secondary moment that was like the end of Matrix 1, when Neo sees Agent Smith and the nature of his reality. The green lines of code emerge and Smith shoots the bullets and he's like, no, like, I don't need that. And I felt like I saw the nature of my reality, that I wasn't interacting with Megan. I was interacting with my story about Megan, like her judgments of me, her inability or unwillingness to connect with me, like who I had to be to connect with this person. And I immediately realized that I was doing that with every single person in my life. I was doing it with Mickey. I was doing it with my parents. I'm doing it with my friends. I'm doing it when I'm presenting from the stage. And I realized that it was all of the stories I've constructed that are the source of this reactivity. And so I'm holding that now. I sit back in my chair, but the moment where everything changed for me, and I think that this will really land for anyone who has that codependent validation seeking streak. We sit down in our chairs and the facilitator very masterfully is like, okay, anyone have anything to share? And Megan raises her hand and she says, yeah, I don't want to be here. And the facilitator's like, great, thanks for sharing. Anyone else? Like, he just rolls with it. This is what he does. And then there's a guy from an investment bank and he's like, yeah, you know, I work with bankers and like this is weird. And no one's going to do this where I work. Like, I don't get this. And he's like, thanks so much for sharing. And it was in that moment where I realized, and I witnessed, like, me simply sharing the truth, liberated and created space for other people to share these truths that they likely wouldn't have shared if it wasn't for me going first. And for me, I recognized like how much I wanted to belong, right? Like how much I wanted to succeed, how much I want the esteem, but like truly more than that, like I want to be free. I want other people to feel free. Like I want Layla Martin to feel like she can be totally honest with me and completely herself. And it just didn't compute for me any longer of like, how could I expect that those people could be themselves if I wasn't doing it, right? It felt like fundamentally unworkable from an ethics standpoint. I was like, I can't expect my mom to be fully honest with me if I'm not doing that first. So yes, I learned all these tools and these tactics, but like what I shifted into was that authenticity and telling the truth in a way that is truly constructive is the experience that we're all after. And sure, like knowing how to tell a story or to present a pitch deck, these are helpful skills. And I know a lot of them, but that what I think we're most after is how do we connect with the truth of who we are, what we want, how do we find like the frameworks and tools that allow us to share that in a way that liberates other people's truths, that creates more connection. And so for me, that is the foundation of good communication.
I had a similar awakening with the actual potent somatic power of truth, which I've referenced it sometimes. One day I'll make a whole podcast on it. But like, yes, I lived in a tantric jungle cult for a year and a half. And in the tantric jungle cult, we would do these all-night fire ceremonies. And all that we were asked to do was just share what we were thinking and feeling.
Yeah.
Which is a little bit different than the truth. Like, the bullshit hamster wheel of your mind isn't necessarily the truth, right? Your truth is something a bit deeper than that. And sometimes just sharing the whole hamster wheel of your mind isn't even helpful for anyone. But I would say that that practice was full transparency. It was utter transparency about what you were thinking and feeling, which also does train you to be comfortable with any kind of truth, whatever that is. And I would start speaking it. So we wouldn't take any plant medicine. We would just open all sitting in a circle, and everyone would start saying what they were thinking and feeling. And you would start with kind of the like, I'm tired, I don't want to be here, whatever. But pretty quickly it goes to the animal primal operating instinct of, I want to fuck you, I want to kill you, or I'm insanely jealous of you, I'm terrified of this thing, or I really want this thing. And there's this primal animal in all of us that I really met in that year that many of us don't touch. Like, it really is so unconscious, and we're thinking on top of it. But one of the things that would happen is, in speaking, I'm thinking this, I'm feeling this, I'm thinking this, I'm feeling this, I would get to the things that I really didn't want to say, that were very uncomfortable for me to be perceived in saying. And if I would say them, the whole field would become psychedelic. It was as though we had taken plant medicine, even though we were sober. So then we would go through the field interacting, and I would continue saying things. I had someone there who I'd recently broken up with that I was desperately in love with, and I'd be like, I just desperately want to crawl into your arms and never leave, or I'm terrified that you're going to fuck her, whatever it was. And in that, there would always eventually come a thought or feeling that I didn't want to express, that I was like, no, this is too much. What will they think? What will I think of myself if I say this thing?
Totally.
And if I didn't say it, it would cut the psychedelic experience. All of a sudden, I'd be back in everyday reality, in default reality. And if I had the courage to say it, the whole psychedelic experience, living reality of divine consciousness, if you will, would stay active. And I was like, whoa, all of the things that we won't admit to ourselves, all of the truths we don't speak are actually what's between us and divine connection at all times. It's that powerful. And a similar feeling to you of having jolts and activations somatically from telling the truth, and also riding the wave of that energetic high from being honest, like just honest and transparent all the time. And what's interesting, I've thought about this quite a bit coming back. And, now I've been out of the jungles and out of Asia for almost 10 years now, 12 years now. And I've really been feeling that, there's a part of me where I will still tell the truth. And now I have more to lose. So it's scarier at times. Like I actually love my life. I love the things I've built. I've loved so much of what I have. And so the stakes have raised because there's an inclination to be like, why tell the truth when you're having such a great time? But I realize that the difference between just being comfortable and telling the truth is the difference between enjoying my life and being fully alive. And I really felt that when I left a Sapiens training somewhat recently, and then I went and did an ayahuasca ceremony. And the first night, it was a Shipibo ceremony. And I don't really resonate with this tradition. It's a beautiful tradition. This is my subjective experience. It has nothing to do with the objective truth. I'm just like, I like the music and the dancing and the light and the ceremony. I don't like sitting all night long in the dark. I actually love darkness retreats. I love meditation retreats, but for whatever reason, this style does not suit me. And they do something called the Icaros, which are these amazing prayers, and they're also deep psychic surgery. And I know that it's sacred language. I know that it's consciousness that is there to heal you. And that night, I was just like blanket over my head, curled up in the fetal position, being like, oh God, we're only 20 minutes into the ceremony. Like, make it fucking stop. Like, make the Icaros stop. And the next day, and this was a circle of my friends and community and certain people that are like impressive and that I want to impress. And I just had this moment similar to that where I was like, I could just tell people I had a great ceremony. Like I could cherry pick the few moments of transcendence and spiritual growth and share that, or I could tell them the truth. And I told them the truth. And I said, like, I'm going to keep choosing being fully alive over being comfortable or having you perceive me in a certain way. And I spent last night in the fetal position trying to cover my ears, being like, I know this is psychic surgery and I know this must be a form of resistance and I don't care. I wish it would just stop. And then everyone else, when they shared, was like, suddenly it broke open the room and everyone got so much more real.
Yeah.
And it feels so good when we're real.
Yeah. 100%. I think what you just said there is really essential for cultivating this type of authentic communication in our life, which is that fundamentally, it's not about having the skill first. It's about having the awareness of our own values and priority. And for you, you talked about this prioritization of aliveness. And you said there's so much that I have that I don't want to lose. But also, as you reconcile this truth of aliveness as this quintessential like value or principle of yours, it's like, what am I willing to sacrifice for that? It's like, well, that's a bigger question. A lot, probably, right? It's like Neville Goddard says that everyone is doing what they're doing because of how they think it will make them feel. And for me, like when I think of success, there's so many things that I'm inspired to create in the world, but like success is just like a sustained feeling, this feeling of freedom, liberation, connection. It's a feeling, right? And so another thing while you were talking that reminded me of is you introduced me to red-handed tantra, which if we were to tell that story, that would be the first time I've ever told that story, which is a fucking crazy one. But you introduced me to red-handed tantra, and as you were talking about being in the jungle, it's like the red-handed path of conversation. It's we make up the story that the thing we least want to share is like the thing that will tear us apart, that will make them leave. And when we share that thing, and actually the response is that everyone else is so grateful, is we show ourselves that where we perceived pain, there is pleasure and joy, which then just begets the next question of where else am I getting in the way of my own enjoyment, of my own pleasure in relationship? Like, where am I getting? And like, that's why it's like, when you know how to do this constructively, and again, it's like, you're not going to listen to this conversation and go and be a fire hose of every thought and feeling. Like there's a framework and there are tools to do this constructively, like in a way that engineers connection. But once you do it one time, like you properly clear or you enter into conflict and you actually feel better on the other side of it, it's hard not to keep doing that. It's hard to keep it inside. And I think that that's a really beautiful thing.
So let's break down a couple of things you've referenced so far. So you mentioned objective versus subjective reality. And this one was huge for me. I can't believe how many years I meditated for and engaged in what appeared to be reasonably healthy adult relationships and managed companies and still was primarily living in objective reality, which means I have my experience. And the point is for you to understand that my experience is right. And if you don't agree with my experience, then the point is for you to understand that your experience is wrong. And it sounds so simple, but it's actually how most of us go through life. And it's how I was raised to communicate. And one of us has to capitulate to the other because there is one reality and there is right and wrong. And we both can't be right. There's no way because there's only one right thing. So one of us must be wrong. And especially if you got raised that being right is better than being wrong, and right makes you safe, and right makes you get what you want in the world, and right makes you good, then you better never be wrong. So you're going to spend a lot of time fighting about whose objective reality is correct.
I would distinguish it as it's the difference between our truth and the truth. And in our truth, there is a right and a wrong. We can hold that perspective. But in the truth, there is not a right and a wrong. And there are very practical ways that we can orient our communication and just the way that we relate around the truth. And so fundamentally, what does that mean? What is the difference between objectivity and subjectivity? Subjectivity means that there is room for interpretation, perspective. Objectivity means it's what it is I am saying is verifiable. It is measurable, right? And so it's like, if I say, okay, you're always on your phone, it's like subjective. There are times when this Freeman is not on his phone. Objective, it's like, hey, you took your phone out 3 times while we're at the dinner table, right? It's like this simple fact of coming through objectivity and noticing the reality of what is happening is the first step in truly creating this foundational need that we all have in relationship, which is like shared reality.
And in doing that, I like going to the objective.
Yeah.
What I could absolutely say is objective. I started to realize how often I was subtly pouring extra emotion and charge on what was actually a subjective thing.
Totally.
Right? Like you pulled out your phone so many times at dinner
Totally.
and you're not paying attention to me versus 3 times at dinner, and then really thinking about that and being like, gosh, people are really addicted to their phones these days.
Yeah.
Like 3 times at dinner is like maybe not my ideal, but also probably like a pretty normal human experience.
Totally. And I think that most of the time when we're in criticism, hyperbolically, subjectively, what we're not doing is feeling.
Yeah.
Right. And so I find that most people are afraid or resistant to emotion, especially the majority of my time is spent with founders as an executive coach. And people don't want emotion in the workplace because our experience of emotionality is the hyperbolic, subjective expression on top of emotion.
Yeah.
It's like, we know what it feels like to be communicated with when someone's angry.
Yeah.
And that's fucking scary and super unproductive. So I don't want to do that. Why would I want to feel that feeling? But what very few people have experienced is, hey, this is the 3rd time that you've shown up late for a one-on-one. And I got to be honest with you, that it makes me feel really angry. And like, what I need from you is to trust that when we have something scheduled, you are going to be there. Can we make an agreement that you are here every single meeting for at least the next month? And if not, here's the consequence.
Yeah, totally. This is Mood Sex Magic. This is an aphrodisiac supplement that I created because when it was date night with my beloved, I was like, I'm so tired. I don't want to have sex. Surely there's something that can give me a lift, a boost, help me feel a little bit more glittery, desirous, and sexual. That thing didn't exist that was clean and effective and scientifically backed. So I made it with a team of scientists, and I combined my experience studying neurobiology at Stanford University with my 20 years in this field, understanding what helps people feel pleasure, what makes orgasm feel better, what enhances sensitivity, and made a superstar ingredient list of nootropics, plant extracts, and really effective herbs that activate your body to feel more and have more pleasure. And I don't just use it before sex anymore. I now use it before a yoga class. I take it before I go out to parties with my friends because it gives me a natural glittery boost. It's got so many ingredients in it, but some of the superstars are Shilajit, which is a mood enhancing aphrodisiac, saffron, which is scientifically proven to enhance arousal and lubrication, huperzine A, which is a moss-derived nootropic that helps you get turned on, mucuna pruriens, which activates your dopaminergic brain centers, lighting up the experience of pleasure, making it easier to feel pleasure inside of your brain. And these are just a few. If you want to try this, go to shopmood.com and we have a podcast coupon code for you for being a listener. So go ahead and pop that in and we'll send you 2 free sticks with your order. Yes. So that's great. I love that framework. And let's break that down so people can use that. But the 2 things for subjective reality that really helped me crack into subjective reality.
Yeah.
One was definitely that someone checks their phones 3 times during dinner, and it is the nature of the human mind for most of us to say, this person doesn't care about me. Yeah. This person is distracted and doesn't want to be here. Ergo, I feel unloved or unseen or whatever the story is, right? And subjective reality, really tapping into that, was some of the time that person is, has a sick child at home, or that person's stressed out about some message that's supposed to come through from work, or that person is nervous and intimidated by me. And so they're having a nervous tick, right? So subjective reality is I actually have no idea what they're actually going through. I can only see the objective thing. And I'm pretty intuitive and insightful and discerning, and I'm still wrong at least half the time when I'm trying to guess someone's subjective experience, that I really have no idea.
Sure.
So that was really huge for me because I think I had so much certainty about if I see you doing this thing, I know what it means,
Totally.
right? Because this is what objective reality and having to be right pushes us into. I also need to be right about what I think your motivations are and what I think is going on for you, right? It's the opposite of curiosity. And it feels in our nervous system like I have to survive by assuming that I know what's going on for other people. This makes me feel safe, even though it actually creates so much conflict. The other thing that really cracked me open to subjective reality is Byron Katie, one of my favorite spiritual teachers, and she does the work, excellent thing to engage in. She tells a story when she was going through her enlightened process. She's wandering through the woods in Southern California, and she comes across someone cooking drugs.
Yeah.
So he pulls a gun on her, and she ends up being in such a state of love when she looks into his eyes that he drops the gun and cries in her arms. And she says two things. Number one, if those were my last moments on earth, I didn't want to spend them in fear.
Yeah.
I'd rather spend them in love, an enlightened state of consciousness. And number two, she says, if I was thinking and feeling what he was thinking, what she says is, if I was thinking his thoughts and believing them, I would hold the gun too.
Yeah.
And she stops and she says to all of us, can you really follow that? If I was thinking his thoughts and believing them, I would be holding the gun too. This cracked me open into subjective reality more than anything else, because you can spend all the time you want arguing about your values, right? I value presence, so you fucking looking at your phone is annoying no matter what, right? Or I value peace, so you pulling a gun on anyone is not okay, right? But instead of getting distracted by that, because that's got its own value, it's understanding that what someone is thinking and believing, if you thought and believed the same exact thing, you would do what anybody else is doing. And I have yet to run this experiment on anything and not be able to put myself in someone's shoes and do what they're doing. Now, I have to be thinking their thoughts and believing them.
Sure.
But when I do that, I'm like, holy shit, everybody makes sense to themselves.
Yeah.
Everybody's actually acting in their own rational way, even if it looks highly irrational on the outside, because they're being rational to their own thoughts and believing them. So, you want to get out of that insanity, you stop believing your thoughts, which is the whole process of Byron Katie. But this really taught me to start looking at other people in a different way, because without even realizing it, and again, this sounds so juvenile, but I still do it all the time.
Yeah.
I'm looking at me when I look at you. All I ever have is my construct of you. I have made you in my head.
Yeah.
So I can't help but assume that you're just like me. And if you were thinking what I was thinking and doing what you were doing, then you'd be an asshole. But if you're thinking what you're thinking and feeling what you're feeling and then doing what you're doing, it actually makes sense. And it's amazing how often, when you really get into it, you can start to understand why everybody is doing what they're doing. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have consequences. It doesn't mean that it's not violent and horrible sometimes. It doesn't mean that we can't say, wow, we should stop this if we want to stop the impact of it. But what it does mean is we can start putting ourselves into other people's shoes and saying, I understand why you're doing this.
Yeah.
Because you're not me and your reality is not mine, and it makes sense to you.
Totally. I mean, when you say that, what comes to mind for me is initially I'm like, oh, that sounds like a lot to do in the midst of active conflict.
Yeah.
And so my mind goes to, again, because I experienced this, but that thought process, taking the time to, I like this idea of like, recently I looked at the definition of introspection, and it's the ability to inspect our thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
And it's quite literally like when we're plugged into the sympathetic nervous system, like fight or flight, it's like that capacity is offline.
Yeah.
You can't do it. And so like what you're talking about is connecting to that thought experiment is very hard if you're looking at someone that you're incredibly angry at and not there. And so like I would invite in, because I think that that's so powerful of bringing us back to presence and like outside of the right, wrong duality, is like when you can't tap in to that frame of mind of understanding where they're coming from, you're still operating in the right, wrong paradigm, that like that may be a great time to pause.
Yeah.
Which like good communication, as much as communicating, is not communicating. It's like when I work with people, whether it's co-founders or couples or anything, it's like they actually talk a lot less when they're with me. They spend a lot more time thinking about what they're feeling and what they really need. And when you invite in like that pause of like, let me just take a moment to like actually try and connect to the truth of your position and why you're there, it takes a little bit of time, perhaps, but also the time that you actually spend in conversation is likely to be so much more fruitful and connected. So,
and I think this is huge, is making sure that you are communicating from an integrated space.
Yeah. And
also, I just talked to Terry Real. I don't know if that podcast has come out before or after this one. Who knows? But anyways, we were
you won't need it after this one for what it's worth. Terry Real.
So we were talking about boundaried versus boundaryless and how people cope in different ways. And some of us learn to feel safe by being very boundaried, and some of us learn to feel safe by being boundaryless. And if you are a boundaryless person, it is going to feel like you should relate and communicate at all times. Yeah. And a lot of us who have this tend to want to process all the time, give feedback all the time, be talking about things all the time.
Yeah.
That worked when I was 25 living in the jungle, had its own pros and cons. You spend a lot of time deep in your shit if you want to do that. And being boundaried about communication, I mean, this was something that I deeply had to learn, because in my collapsed states, in my traumatized states, in my rage or my fear or my sadness, I longed for connection. And those parts of me wanted to know that someone else could connect to me from those states. But it wasn't until I could actually hold those states, connect to those states, be with those states, that anybody else could regularly meet me in those places and I could actually get what I wanted. So I think what you're saying is incredibly important, which is if I'm collapsed into any kind of trigger or any kind of overwhelming emotional response, then the first step of putting my own oxygen mask on is getting myself back to integration, getting myself back to what Terry calls your adult self or your higher self or your prefrontal cortex, anything that's not your amygdala being like, just kill it all, burn it all down. You don't need this anyways. You could end it all and start over on a beach somewhere.
When I see this is every photo I've ever taken of Layla is this one. Everyone.
My arms wide open for those of you who aren't watching us on film. So yes, that part is really, really, really key. Now, you used a term earlier called violent communication. Can you give some examples of what is violent communication?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I say one more thing to touch on what we were just talking? Because I think that what you were also touching on there was this delicate line of boundaried versus unboundaried. And I think that there's a very specific tactic that is quite helpful for the masculine to stay present and in connection in those moments when we're like deep in the rupture and the conflict.
Yeah.
And so what I think is, again, it's oftentimes when people come together in conflict, they're still in this right-wrong paradigm. They're communicating in hyperbolic criticism. They're not grounded in the objectivity of their own needs or tangible requests to the other person. And so what happens is, like, in that moment, the masculine is hyper-focused on the problem and solution dynamic of, like, if there is a problem here, let's solve it. And oftentimes the feminine is in the beauty and overwhelm of the emotion and wants to be expressed and held in that. And so oftentimes, if that emotion is being communicated hyperbolically or critically, you are not in an active process of clearing or solving, moving towards resolution. And so when we have this frame of objectivity. Our friend Mark talks about like, do you want to be heard, helped, or held? Right? It's like, do you just want me to listen to you right now? Do you actually want me to help you resolve what you're feeling? Or do you just want to be held? Like, do you just want my presence? And so that idea of, for the masculine, to be able to understand, where am I listening from right now? Because I think that you're totally within your right, and like holding the highest of the relationship. If we are repairing, it is essential for you to take ownership over your emotions and your needs and what you need of me. That is essential. And if we're not there right now, that's okay. But I need to turn off that part of my brain that is listening to resolve and understand that maybe I do just want to fucking talk about this. I want to vent in the hardness. And that once I'm clear about that, like, oh, okay, I can do that. And if I actually do just want presence and to be together while I'm in this, while like my intellectual understanding of what I need catches up, I find that frame is quite helpful for the masculine to stay in connection while we're not actively clearing or resolving, of just staying in the connection. But I just want to share this one little thing I find is quite helpful.
Yes. And I definitely think that this is advanced practice and helps so much. It's a version of, can you stay connected even in the rupture?
Yeah.
Can you stay connected even when things are really hard? And or can you open your heart? Can you be the first to open your heart when things are really, really challenging? Yeah. And also for many of us, right, taking a moment, I think like my mom and my stepdad had this really amazing practice, and they did this before we were all going to therapy, bless them. And they were like, we always had to ask, like, can I have a moment? And she said in our 30-year marriage before my stepdad passed away, she said that neither of us ever said no. And you always had to come back, right? So learning to stay connected through the rupture, I think, is the advanced practice.
Yeah.
And learning to take a moment is the intermediate practice, and letting your partner take a moment.
Sacred pause.
Yeah, exactly. So that you can collect yourself.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned is that sadness and anger are similar expressions of emotional overwhelm. We have a lot more tolerance for sadness in our culture than we do for anger. Anger does also hurt a lot more to be receptive to. But if you're in any overwhelming emotion, you're not yet in a state to actually repair. Sure. And so I think what you've articulated is amazing, because you might just say, hey, I'm overwhelmed by emotion right now, and I just want to be witnessed or seen or connected to in this. But I think one story that we can tell ourselves when we're angry or really sad is that we can somehow navigate to repair from that place. Yeah. And this is not true.
100% agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So you had asked me, what is violent communication? So like, again, this frame comes from nonviolent communication, Marshall Goldsmith. And like, he would say that violent communication is like anywhere where we are taking our subjective experience and layering it onto someone else's experiences as the truth. Like we talked about our truth, which is like anything that we are thinking and feeling, like that's our truth. That's true for us. And then there's the truth. And the truth is that is happening that we can verify, right? And so it's like when I get cut off in traffic on the way here, and I say, you're a fucking asshole, like that is my truth, right? That guy is a fucking asshole. But like, you know, how do I know what was going on for that guy? Like if 9 billion people were watching that, would everyone say that he was an asshole? It's like, there's probably going to be at least a couple of dissenters. And so violent communication is fundamentally like where we are doing that. And I personally don't use the framing of violent communication. I find that, especially because most of the people I'm working with are in startups, that objective communication lands for them as like, it's just like, oh yeah, like objectivity is a thing that we fundamentally understand. That sounds good. And so like I use the framing of objective communication, but also when I use that, for the most part, I am talking about nonviolent communication with a couple of tweaks around like owning our stories and curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where do we go from there then? Like there's objective reality, which is this is the thing that we could all agree on. Like
this happened.
You just took a drink, or
you said this.
You said this.
Yeah.
Or you didn't turn the project in.
So I have a friend named Tom Bond. He runs the New York Center for Nonviolent Communication, and he has this frame that he calls needs-based consciousness, which is a fun way to understand our reality, that anytime we are experiencing an emotion, it is fundamentally because a need that we have has been met or unmet. And as we embrace that, it engineers, at least in me, a curiosity of like, okay, so if I am feeling loving in this moment, it's like, oh, my need for like connection, right? It's like, is being met, right? If I feel joy, it's because my need for adventure is being met. If I feel sadness, it means that like something I value is missing. If I feel angry, my need for a boundary to be honored is not there. And so that's so much of the value of increasing our connectivity, our ability to feel and express what's there, is because it's moving us closer to an awareness of our needs, which fundamentally, like, why do we want to communicate? Like, I think it's all on top of behavior change. We want to cultivate the behaviors that help our life, and we want to mitigate the ones that fuck it up. And like, so if emotions are like the primary vehicle to help us understand, okay, what need is not being met? So this thing happened. This is what was said. This happened. And I felt this. And what's powerful here is, again, it's like most people, when they say it's like, I'm sharing my feelings, you never actually hear them say the actual, like, I'm sad, I'm angry. And so just that act of sharing the emotion makes us empathizable, which is not a word. I made that up. But like, it's like they have the capacity to empathize with you. And if you're in relationship, like that person cares about you to some degree. And so it's just that. So it's into the feeling. I think it's fairly straightforward there. And then you move on beyond that into the needs, which is like, okay, so if I've said that all of my emotions are a compass towards some need, and we're talking about this in the conflict of conflict. And so it's typically going to be a challenging emotion. And so our needs actually don't need to be objective. Like they're more universal in nature. So it's like I needed connection. I needed presence. I needed time. And so these universal needs of like what it was that I needed in that moment, like clarifying, okay, like here's what I needed in that moment. And then the last step of objective communication invites us into requests. And the thing about requests is that while needs can be subjective in nature, our requests of people need to be objective. And I have a framework I've developed called the 5 A's, which make it easier to understand, okay, fundamentally, all of my trigger in relationship is the product of needs not being met. Well, then how can I masterfully make requests of other people that make it easier for them to shift their behavior in the ways that I need? And like, if we were just looking at like, what is relationship? It's kind of just my needs, your needs, and where those match up. And so then if we move into request, the 5 A's would start with ask. It's like, maybe I just need to ask you a question because I'm assuming you're feeling some way and I don't really know. I want to understand, why did you talk to that woman at the party? Whatever it is. So I need to ask a question. And the next one is acknowledgement, which is, this is a distinction. It's like a lot of times people go straight to apology, which is the next one. But acknowledgement is sometimes it's like, I leave the fridge open all the time. 10% of the time, I leave the refrigerator open. I don't know why. And like, when that happens, like Mel doesn't need me to fucking like get on my knees or apologize, but she needs me to acknowledge it so that we're in a shared reality that this shouldn't be happening, right? It's not a big deal. For
the record, I strangely was leaving the mini fridge open as well.
I don't know what it is. I can't close the fridge.
I know. And Brigitte would be like, it just happened again. And I'd be like, what? How?
I don't know. Just
swear to God, I've got the rest of my life together, but I can't seem to close the mini fridge.
So that second A is acknowledgement, which is just that I don't need you to do anything. I just need my experience acknowledged so it can be considered. That's acknowledgement. And then you would move into apology. And I think that there's a distinction here that is quite helpful for apology, which is we had talked about the dangers of the pitfalls of the right-wrong dynamic. And a lot of us correlate apology with being wrong. I have done something bad. And I think that especially with the masculine, what makes apology more accessible is where we can look at what we did and see how what we did or what we said is out of alignment with how we wish we did it. So the ability to look at like, hey, I said this, I wish I would have said this instead, and I'm sorry, right? It's not saying that what I did was wrong or bad. It's about my own relationship to integrity and sharing that with the person. So you're not just saying sorry, but you're showing what the desired action should have been and just taking ownership of that. Like that's, I think, a helpful way to apologize. And so maybe you need an apology from someone. That's a clear request. That would help me to get back to clear. The next one is immediate action, right? It's like, do I need this person to do something right now? I need them to call this person. I need them to file this report. I need to go to this place. So I need action. And the final one, and I would say that this is one of the quintessential skills of really incredible leadership, is agreements. And an agreement is very different from an intention. An agreement is something that is objective, that is verifiable, that is measurable, right? It's typically a binary in its evaluation. Did this happen or did it not? There's not room for interpretation. And like fundamentally, so much of the best relationships that I know of, they are built on the back of explicit and repeatable agreements, rituals. And it's, what is an agreement? An agreement is something that two or more parties have agreed to because everyone sees that this is in the best interest of ourselves and the unit. And it's like, an agreement doesn't exist if one of you doesn't see that. It's not an agreement. It means one of you is in some way sacrificing one of your needs in a way that I think is fundamentally unworkable. And we can talk more about agreements because there's a lot of intricacies there, but that's just the simplicity of that process. And it has a terrible acronym of OFNER, if you ever want to remember like how to work through it. But like that would take you there. But then when you start to move into that, what you realize is that if I'm telling myself that what I want to do is fix something, change something that has happened, make sure it doesn't happen again, like this process is the most efficient and effective pathway to connect with the truth and share that. And as we start to master some of these tools, what we find, it's like, like my truth is not necessarily a virtue. Like it's not helpful or constructive to share that, because I don't want Mel to just spew off like every negative thought that she has about me when I leave the refrigerator open for the 100th time. And so it's like, it's not my truth. It's the truth. And that's kind of like how we can connect to it pragmatically.
Let's talk more about agreements, because I think those are not as articulated as they could be or should be.
Agreements are, again, I'll use that word, is that they are objective. And a lot of people get this confused. A lot of people say, it's like, we want intentions. Layla, I want us to spend more time together as friends.
Yeah.
Great, Andrew, me too. What that means to me and what that means to Layla, who knows where we end up there, right? And so intentions are beautiful, but they are much less efficient at engineering behavior, at helping people to do the things that we need them to do to meet our needs. And so agreements are objective, they're measurable. Did you do this? Yes, no. And I think that we're talking about communication. And I think one of the simplest things that anybody who's listening to this could do in their relationship is to establish some foundational agreement around first person owned, nonviolent, or objective communication. It's like you listen to this and you're like, hey, I don't want to like oscillate in reactivity and subjective bullshit. Like I see how that is me being a victim. I see how that's hurting the relationship. And so as you start to look at like, okay, let's establish an agreement around that. And if you were to establish, even like me, who talks about this all day, every day, I'm not perfect in this, but what's beautiful about setting agreements is it allows you to once again come out of the right wrong trap, because now what you are setting is the scaffolding of your relationship that both of you understand is most important. And so when an agreement is broken, it's not like, fuck you. It is, hey, we said you were going to do this and you didn't do this. And because it's depersonalized in that way, it becomes so much easier for everyone to simply take ownership, right? And so that's an example. And like the agreements that I would say are easiest to establish, like make it super practical, would be around communication. It's like, okay, we embrace objective communication, especially during times of conflict. Like you don't need to have this during like all moments, but if we're like in repair, okay, great. Like let's embrace that. When we get it wrong, which we inevitably will, we both commit to the process of taking ownership. And like there's a tactile process of like, hey, I said this. I wish I had not done that at all. And I'm sorry. And again, like taking ownership does not mean saying I'm sorry. Taking ownership involves asking the person, like, do you need anything to feel clear on that? If you are just, I think this is a really important distinction, that if you are apologizing for something and you're not including that last part there, like letting me know, do you need anything? That your apology is more for you than the other person. It's like a very small but significant piece. And so you would move into that of like, okay, so we're going to agree that we're going to take ownership. Like, say sorry. If I did that, I'm sorry. And then we come back into it. It's like if you were to look at other agreements, it's like, what are the things that we commit to with some level of regularity to honor the relationship, right? So it's like with Melissa, I know that every Sunday I'm going to do our weekly check-in, and it's like 6 questions that like are going to allow us to bring in tender shares like intentionally, that just like ground into gratitude for each other, the relationship, what we're looking forward to strategically, what do we want to support people with, right? It's like, I know that every quarter we have a love date. Thank you for that terminology. And we're going to go somewhere awesome and we're going to get super weird. And like that's a whole day to ourselves. And like, we know that we're going to do that. And we have a date day. And it's like, so it's like, those are agreements that like, we have to do those things. And like, fundamentally, it's when I am explicit in the articulation of agreement, the relationship becomes so much more effortless because we're clear about the behaviors that are required for the thriving of the relationship. And the idea here is not to over-engineer your relationship. I always say, especially when I'm doing culture design with CEOs, it's like the minimum amount of structure for maximum freedom and maximum performance. And it's like, what is the least amount of structure that we can put in here so everyone knows what is celebrated and like helps everyone to be their best. Like that's what's most interesting to me.
And what do you say? I know that this has been said to you before. It's definitely been said to me. I don't want to cram everything that I think into therapy speak.
I mean, therapy speak. I think that you don't have to do anything, right? It's just about how you would like to communicate ultimately. Of like a lot of people who have resistance to this way of communicating. I have a lot of CEOs who I work with who I talk about objective communication. They're like, nah, fuck those feelings. Like that's not this place of work. I'm like, great. Do everything we talked about and completely remove your feelings. And you're going to be much more effective because you're just focusing on what you need and like objectively and a lot of people I work with have done that. But so like people who say that they don't want to over like therapize their communication, it's like, for me, this is really just connecting to objectivity. It is the truth. And if that resonates for you personally, if you look at that and you're like, oh, wow, that resonates for me as a healthy way that I would like to relate, then that's all there is. Because if you're now in relationship, personally or professionally, with someone who's not available for that, again, my needs, your needs, and where they meet up. And it's like, there's no right or wrong, but like in those relationships where someone's not available to our needs and we've made those explicit, it becomes much easier to evaluate what you want to do with that relationship long term. Yeah.
And let's talk about integrity.
Let's talk about integrity. What is integrity to you? What do you think it is?
Integrity is that I do what I say I will do and that I am who I say I am. So it's a accuracy between my inner world and my actions and what I'm communicating to you and what I'm doing.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And so I think that everyone has some subjective, meaningful interpretation and relationship with that word of integrity as a value, as a virtue. It's pretty easy for us to aspire to and to embody that. And so for me, when I think about why I am obsessed with integrity, I think it's just built on the back of this fundamental belief that life in and of itself is a gift. Like to be able to experience anything at all is the greatest gift. And for me, so much of why I'm here is just to make the most of it, is to make the most of my life, to feel fully, to like drink it all in, to experience everything that there is. And for me, the practice of integrity is ultimately like how I do that. Integrity is a practice of being myself. And what I sought to do was to transform integrity from a kind of ambiguous virtue into more of a life and leadership practice. And so for me, it's 3-tiered. Integrity is knowing ourselves. cultivating self-awareness of who we truly are. And then it is speaking the truth with objectivity and positive intent. So it's like essential, again, authenticity on itself is not enough. It's speaking the truth with objectivity and positive intent. And then it is keeping our agreements. And that for me, integrity is that 3-tiered approach, which is sequential in nature. It's that fundamentally, like, we must understand who we are, right? Like we talked about that earlier for you, of like the significance of aliveness for you and the connection to that value is clarifying of right action in the moment, right?
Yeah.
And so when we start to explore like what is true for me, knowing ourselves and clarifying that identity, that authentic self is essential. And then the truth is just all about communication moment to moment. And then ultimately honoring our agreements with ourself and with others is, once again, it's explicitly clarifying for me to be myself. Here's what I must do. And especially with men and the Junto, that is like the quintessential orienting factor. I love simplicity as a teacher, like communication. What is it? Objectivity. It's that. How do I like be a great leader and like live fully? Integrity. And like those two things, if you were to orient towards objectivity, you're going to be an effective communicator as you master that. Like you're not going to regret any time you spend there. And when it comes to integrity, if you master these skills of knowing myself, speaking the truth objectively, of honoring my agreements, like I cannot fathom a universe that no matter what happens, the way your relationship ends up or your business, that you will look back on your life and regret anything, because you were fundamentally investing into the process of being yourself to the best of your ability.
And how do you see that men specifically have been able to build integrity when they haven't historically had it? I've definitely seen this. I mean, obviously anyone can go through this, but I've really seen this with men where they've like broken trust with themselves. Cheated, I've been in addiction, I've been out of integrity with money, I've been out of integrity with my partner, I've broken agreements in some way, shape, or form. How do they rebuild that?
Yeah, well, I do think that my process of integrity is like sequential in nature. And so it's built on the back of knowing ourselves. And you've spoken to me, like I asked you once, I forget where we were, but I said, what is the most important thing that like you wish every man could experience? And you used the word, I think, deconditioning. And I had another experience with Esther Perel, who we were sitting at a dinner, and I asked her the same question. I was like, if all men could practice one thing, what would that be? And she looked at me without any hesitation and she said, shame. She said, I wish that men knew how to intentionally and conscientiously work with their shame. And so if being ourself is built on the back of knowing ourselves, shame, the hidden beliefs about how we are fundamentally broken, not enough, unlovable, is this deeply held belief about who we are that we have accepted unconsciously and that we're so afraid to talk about, because if anyone knew these things about us, like we would be unlovable, we would be not enough. And so I think that one of the first steps to liberating people into this honest exploration of self, of who I am, is deconditioning these aspects of themselves that they are not. And like, I love giving men this experience collectively of, we have an experience I've done several times of like helping people to anonymously write down their shame stories of like, what are the things that I say to myself about myself? Like when I'm on my fucking pillow and I can't get to sleep. And I'll invite men to oftentimes like blindfold themselves, and then we'll read these stories in a room of men. And so it's this connectivity of a group of people hearing their shame anonymously, hearing other men's shame. And there's this thing that happens that allows men to experience that hidden part of themselves, which is that their shame connects them to their fundamental humanity and to each other. And once we do that, like we have this mantra, we say, I experience shame. Everyone experiences shame. Shame is a part of life. May I get the message? If there is one, and if not, go back to living my life. And so I think that truly reclaiming integrity starts by connecting with the truth of who we are, and deconditioning who we are not is a part of that. And then like one of the quintessential aspects of building our identity feels, again, like so rudimentary. But I remember as I was starting to be a coach like 8 years ago, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I just don't know anyone who's like a master who is on the forefront talking about core values. And I was like, I work with CEOs. Every CEO I work with has core values. It's like one of the first things that they would do for their business, because why do you have core values? You want to show your employees what behavior is celebrated within our culture. But you ask those same CEOs, what are your values? And they don't know them. Like maybe they did them at an exercise, but like intuitively, they're not there. And so like when I think of intuition, to me is an awareness of the unconscious. And so this process of connecting to values, like if you don't know your values, like I ask you and they're right there, you don't know them, because the only purpose of values is that you know them so well that they're lodged in your unconscious, so that you're unconsciously evaluating your life and your decisions and your speech against those without even thinking about it. That's where that knowing, that intuition comes from. And like with values, I think that one of the things that I discovered with values, it's like you can hypothetically look at them and say like, here's what my values are, right? It's connection, service, authenticity, integrity, leadership. Like those are all values of mine. And it's helpful to just think about them. But there's a really interesting exercise that anyone can do that I find is really valuable to start this conscious erection of the self. And it's the peaks and valleys of life. Of like, I'll ask you, if you look back at the arc of your life and you think of one moment, and I'm going to challenge you to share something that you've never shared on the podcast before.
Okay.
What is one moment that comes to mind, like a specific moment in time where you were experiencing what feels to you like peak performance and maximum enjoyment, where you were showing up as the fullest version of yourself and experiencing maximum enjoyment of that thing? Like, what is a moment that comes to mind for you?
The main thing that comes to mind is the VITA coaching retreats. I'm not saying this is like a subtle pitch opportunity. Just this year. It's interesting because the year before was before I got sick. And it was the happiest I'd ever been teaching, like the most in flow and the most joyful. But I still think I was the happiest in these retreats, because I was so in love with the team and everything that we'd built. And I felt a kind of integrity with everything. Like every single person who was holding space at that retreat, I was excited about. And I was proud of myself for coming through a year of illness and still holding with a level of magnificence. And I could feel the artistry and the mastery reflected back at me. And it was so enjoyable to just be part of that level of magic.
And I'm gonna invite you to go like one step deeper, which is, what was the moment in time? Because you told me about a retreat, and this is just for
the actual moment.
Yeah, if you think about this from a storytelling lens, my mom, she helps entrepreneurs to write TED Talks and books and stuff like that, and she would always say, never tell a story, only relive a story. And the only way that you do that is by putting yourself into the moment, right? Yeah. So you can tell someone about a retreat, but like if you was like, there was one moment that epitomizes that experience, what was it? What was being said? How did you feel?
Yeah, the moment that epitomizes that experience was womb breath work, where everyone's breathing into their wombs and there's a lightning storm happening and there's just an electricity in the room. And people, there's this phenomenon that happens when your womb energy moves up to your heart and it hits your navel and you cackle. That's where the wish cackle comes from. And there were all these cackles coming through the room of women waking up and just feeling, it's like you could touch the electricity in the room. Yeah.
Just make like a little point there, but it's the easiest way to be a captivating storyteller is that simple thing of don't tell stories, just relive them. Like you lived that moment. If you just go back into it, whatever energy was there will be available to you. And so that's like, I love that frame from my mom, Sam Horn, represent.
Yeah, I mean, the vulnerability is like having had long COVID, my memory is more of a haze now.
That was pretty good.
Myself into the moment is like different than it was, but my brain's coming back. We got literally probably 4 times more sharpness than we had 5 months ago.
Yeah. Well, so if you think about any moment in your life where you were feeling and performing your best.
Yeah.
I guarantee you that that was the case because your values were being expressed.
Yes.
And so even if you were to extrapolate a little bit out of that, in that moment with the breath work, the lightning happening, and these don't need to be core values, like we could do that later, but like what values of yours were being expressed in that moment?
Aliveness, transmission of the beauty and divinity of the goddess. Deep collaboration, like such a love for the team. I remember watching like the VITA Guardians of Eros move through the space in their various states of wild undress and just being so grateful. And like we'd like look each other in the eyes. The love, like the deep love that happens in that room, in that space. And also I felt finally, what's interesting is I'm very proud of the integrity that I've had as a teacher all these years.
Yeah.
But it felt like that level of integrity had fully permeated every single person on the team. Yeah. And that we were all sharing a similar set of values and understanding about what we were doing. And so there was an amplification. And I do have values of mastery and excellence. And it felt like there was real mastery. There was real excellence. There was truth. Yeah, it was just, and like a real value of authenticity and like the right kind of confidence, meaning like I just feel good to be whatever I am kind of thing.
Totally. So it's just like in there of like mastery, of confidence, of integrity. So this practice of more authentically exploring what our values are. And on the other side of the spectrum, if you look at the moments where you're the lowest, like long COVID, like alone, like by yourself, like in those moments, your values are being suppressed. Yeah. Right? Like health. Like it's obviously.
You're like, damn you, universe. How have you taken so much so quickly?
But so that's like, I would say foundational of looking at like the hidden sense of self, looking at the empowered sense of self. And then just like at a very high level, I think that there's like a very tactile approach to identity formation that you could look at, which is like, okay, so I am my values. I am my purpose. I am whatever I'm committed to that is greater than the self. I'm legacy. I'm whatever I'll become after I'm like no longer occupying this skin suit. I am my emotions, which is like the closest approximation of who I am in this moment, right? Yeah. I am these relational identities of mother, father, son, and all of those have some expectations that I associate with those. I have spiritual identities, right? It's like, we're all one. I'm a Buddhist. I'm a Christian. And again, those have some certain set of preferences, values, and beliefs that you associate with them. And so there is a very tactile way to answer this question of who am I, right? And I think that for men to reclaim integrity is to reconnect with the truth of who they are so that when they're out of integrity, it's much more explicit, and that awareness doesn't allow them to continue to fucking Peter Pan act out of integrity, because the pain of not being who they know they are becomes too intense, and the joy of being themselves becomes so palpable and magnetic.
Yeah, because who you are is knowing what you really want.
Yeah.
Knowing what you're capable of. Also being able to track your nervous system such that you can feel when any little shadowy bits are cropping up and you're like, how do I attend to this moment? Or how do I get what I want without doing something out of integrity? I also think a huge piece of it too is knowing who you are means that you only make agreements that you can actually stick to, right? Like those are the only places in my life where I end up being out of integrity, is where I'm just like, yes, I'll be there. And it's like, you know, you're not going to be there. Like,
well, the danger of that is just yesterday I was on with a CEO client, and we had made an agreement around creative productivity. And it's like something that's on the calendar. It's like, don't prioritize your schedule your priorities, Stephen Covey, like classic stuff. And we were talking about it, and I was like, how's it going? He's like, oh, bad, like not good. And I was like, okay. And I was like, you got to get that shit off of there.
Yeah.
And the reason, and what I told him, is that when we make agreements with ourselves, and we do this all the time and we're unaware of it, like the most common ones are around health and fitness, right? We set an agreement with ourselves subliminally, not explicitly, but we tell ourselves, I'm going to go to the gym like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But we haven't written that down. We just know I go to the gym 4 times a week, right? I go 3 times a week. How do I eat? I eat paleo, but like ish, right? And so what happens is we have these agreements that we know are there, but we're not explicit about them. And anytime that we don't honor an agreement, what we're also doing is reaffirming the identity, the belief that I am not the type of person who honors my agreements.
Yeah, which is so painful to feel about yourself.
Totally.
The way I get around that is with food, for instance. Like, I eat healthy 90% of the time. And I know myself, it's 90 to 95% of the time. If I try and get to 100, something inside me backfires and I'm like, now I have to eat. Okay, I wouldn't eat a TV dinner, but you know what I mean. Like,
those
now I got to eat.
People are weirdos.
Now I need to eat salt and vinegar chips for
Totally.
breakfast, right? Like, just like a full backlash.
Yeah.
So the way I keep agreements, and I think this is important because it's a nuance that people don't often think of. It's important in relationships as well. Is like, maybe I can't do this thing 100% of the time.
Totally.
So this is how much I actually can.
100%.
And this is part of staying in integrity. I do the same thing with the gym.
Yeah.
I'm like, 4 out of 5 times, if you said you were going to the gym, you always have to go.
Totally.
So I know that if I skipped last time, then this time I'm absolutely going. And that's my integrity. I know that.
Yeah, but exactly that, which is living a life of integrity, is not only about living a life of integrity, it is about reclaiming integrity. That is just as much a part of the process. And like the thing here, it's like when you actually explicitly say to yourself, to be me, to do the things that I want to do on this planet, to build the relationship that I want, I must do this. It's confrontational because it makes you say, it's like, hey, you are objectively not doing the thing that you know you need to do. And you're going to feel like shit when you do that. And that's okay. Because like in spurts, like again, like that can motivate you to get back on track, right? And so I think that, that's the power of it, is that it is confrontational in nature, but they give you the opportunity to rise to your highest.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think one of the great tests of this too, and people are like, well, how do I know if something's in integrity or not? One of our shared mentors, Ernest Morrow, would say, would you sign your name to it in the front of the New York Times or whatever media organization you care about, since it's all fractured now. But like some public facing thing, would you sign your name to your behavior and be like, I did that, right?
I love that.
And you can have secret integrity. Like, I have a bunch of shit that I do that the rest of the world would judge me for, but I'm proud of myself, right?
Like what?
Like, I let my ex-partner on MDMA urinate all over the house if he needs to feel free, right? You know, there's some people that might not understand that.
Front page of the New York Times. That'd be a nice kind of like introduction to the world.
I'd be proud.
Yeah, totally.
I'd be proud, right? That's how I know that it's integrity. And there's certain things sometimes where I'm like, ooh, yeah, I wouldn't want to sign my name to this. So I know that it's not in alignment with my values, and I want to live in alignment with my values. And, you know, that ends up over a lifetime, I do think, creating a tremendous amount of happiness and an ability to build long-term things, whether that's a business, whether it's a relationship, whatever it is that you care about, that really like makes it last for the long run. All right, let's get some final thoughts from you, Andrew Horn, or anywhere else you'd like to take this.
I'll share, because we're talking about communication.
Yeah.
And so maybe a fun place to, I don't know where we are in timing, but we've had a couple of experiences of being in Costa Rica. And I won't say what happened, but you kind of snuck away from your retreat for a little bit, and we met.
Yeah.
And
came for a walk with you on the beach. You're making it sound a lot more clandestine.
Okay, I didn't know if you were supposed to.
As though, as the leader of the retreat, I can't leave the retreat center.
Okay, great. But you invited me to do this practice of like, hey, what if we just took like 5 minutes and we just went absolutely ham on appreciation for our lives? And we just walk down the beach and we just get excited about all the stuff in our life. And it was so lovely. And one of the aspects that I will welcome in here as we're talking about communication, and especially for conflict, I ran this company, Tribute, for almost 12 years. And we help people to create these video montages telling the people you care about why you love them. And we had this mantra, and it was, if you have anything nice to say, say it all.
Yeah.
It's like we were raised with this saying that if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. And I'm like, well, what's the kind of like corollary of like, no, if there's anything good in there, say it.
Yeah. And
especially in conflict, it's connecting to what it is that you appreciate about the person and remembering that that constant is there even during conflict and rupture. And to do our best to connect with that part of them is always going to engineer the quality of presence that makes it more likely that we're going to connect, that we're going to be able to repair. And so like that aspect of appreciation, I think, is just one here that's probably like the easiest aspect of our truth to share. But also, it's what's funny, I say that it's the easiest, but oftentimes like what I say is one of the easiest pathways to step into this life of radical authenticity is to just make a list of every one of your friends and every one of your family members, and then just look at that list and think of every single person on there and exactly why you appreciate them, why you love them, and to make a point to send a message to them. And if you have resistance to that, perhaps just notice like resistance to sharing appreciation, which will be probably the easiest part of your experience to share with someone. But it's like one of the easiest pathways to embrace this idea of I am committed to being exactly as I am and fully expressed. And appreciation is like one of the most beautiful pathways to embark on that path and to embrace it. So that's a fun one.
I love the idea of, in relationship, in communication, in integrity, giving yourself little awards that no one else will ever see, for behaviors that no one else will ever see, right? Because I think sometimes our nervous systems are very wired for safety. So we're going to default towards the safety expression, which is why we do a lot of shit that doesn't feel great sometimes or is counterproductive. So in all the ways that you can train yourself to keep your heart open, to act in integrity, to speak the way that you know you want to speak. The thing, Annie Lala really helped me with this sort of articulation of this, is to give yourself a little award. Like I imagine like the sexy aliens, like the aliens that you would want to come, like show up out of nowhere and they're like, hey, nobody else was in the kitchen during that. And your partner didn't even notice, but I saw it, right? Yeah. And they're like, we would like to give you this glowing award from the cosmos. And so every single time I choose to love myself a little bit more, choose to hold myself a little bit better, every single time I do the right thing, it's like, can I take a moment to celebrate myself? Because that feeling that you have towards yourself is the most important thing. And integrity and good communication and healthy relationships are actually built on the 95% of the time that you just with yourself.
Can I share one of my favorite frames on integrity that you just inspired? I'm so happy you said that. So one of my favorite stories in all of human history is the story of Marcus Aurelius and Meditations. And you know this story? Okay, so Meditations is a book written by Marcus Aurelius, who is this storied philosopher, Roman emperor, general. And Meditations is one of the quintessential books on Stoicism. But the thing that less people know is that Stoicism is literally a compilation of Marcus Aurelius's journals for himself. It is a system and code of ethics that he wrote to hold himself accountable to his own ideal. And the idea that one of the most accomplished people in history was doing that based off of this internal code of ethics and principles. And then after the fact, that was discovered and compiled and has impacted millions of people is one of the most inspiring acts I've ever experienced. And I 100% agree with you that the ultimate act of integrity to me is a promise to yourself, is this idea of I am here and I will act based on an internal code of ethics that is mine and mine alone. And that I am the only person that will ever know whether I have done that or whether I have fallen short. But that promise to yourself, and it's like something where it's like something I'm so clear on, and I have moments where I get to check in with it, and I just know it's like that I will hold that until I'm no longer breathing. And it's that like to orient into that for me is this anchor into like how I want to live my life on top of it is that you know what is right. And if you do that, hopefully the quality of your life will take the shape you'd like it to. So far it has, fortunately. But a promise.
And even if it doesn't, at least I was living according to my own integrity.
Yeah, what else could you do, right? Yeah. So a promise to yourself and just like taking a moment, like, what is that? Who do I need to be me?
Hard.
I love you, Layla Martin.
I love you.
I don't know if they heard the appreciation before, but I'll say it again. You have been one of the most important people in my life, and you held me through some of the most challenging times masterfully in only a way that you could. And you are just like one of the biggest stands for freedom liberation and healing that I know of, and truly one of the most masterful. And it's just like I'm really grateful that I get to experience this presence of like inspiration and just real safety and love. And so thanks for being you and all you do.
I love that you are, I have a collection of friends that I can always be the absolute realist with. And you are one of them. And I love, you actually call me sometimes and you're like, hey, can I be real? And I'm like, what else are we, man?
Yeah, that's when you know it's going to be something weird.
And I love that because it says to me what you're actually doing inside. I always want to tell you the truth. And that's not always the case. Sometimes I got to get myself to tell people, to tell people the truth. But with you, I always take a pause, take a moment and be like, no, what is really going on? Like, how do I really feel? What's really happening? And I love that we kicked off this podcast. I wish actually I'd started filming in the car. I was too hungry. It's been a long day. We had a lot of podcasts, Instagram reels, all that. But you pulled up, I wanted extra time so I could eat. And you were listening to the saddest playlist in the world. I don't know if that's the title of it.
It's called Sad Boy Cry Party.
Sad Boy Cry Party.
On Spotify if you're interested.
And you were like, do you mind listening to Sad Boy Cry Party? You didn't use that title, but that was what you were indicating. And I'll just talk while you eat. And I was like, that sounds great to me.
Totally. And that is the essence of it. It's like a loving challenge and reminder to just go back to whatever is the realist, and understanding that that's the most connected, the most enjoyable. And I think, again, it's just a reminder, that frame we talked about earlier of authenticity is service, right? It's I just want you to be so free to just be your crazy, wild, real self. And if I want that for you, I just have to do it.
Yes.
And it's imperfect and it's not a strategy. It's just a being, right? And so here's to that forever and ever.
That's to you listening to your highest truth, to the realist, to the Sad Boy Cry Party. And we'll see you out there joining the ranks of everybody willing to tell the truth. Thank you for listening to This Tantric Life. I am Layla Martin. This is the home for the realist conversations about sex, spirituality, polarity, conscious relationships, and all kinds of topics that help us live the absolute most incredible lives. Please check out the next episode. Please go ahead and leave your rating and review on Spotify or Apple or YouTube. It's so helpful when you do that. If you want to stay connected to me, the most helpful supportive thing you can do is to head over to laylamartin.com, sign up with your email address. That connects you to me if you want to study deeper with me, if you want to receive my deeper teachings. I do it predominantly via email. Finally, you can check me out on Instagram at @the Layla Martin. And thank you so much for being here.